Councilor Hughes.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. First item is to adopt the agenda. I'd like to have a motion to adopt the August 21st, 2017 regular meeting agenda as presented. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. Seconder, Councillor Krog. All those in favor? Councillor Tripp.
Just wondering how that the addendum was going to be added, the 22nd Street budget amendments. Piece that we got the extra correspondence.
That's late items.
Not one of the late items?
They're late items.
Okay.
All those in favor? You want to put in this?
Yeah.
Want to put it in the late item?
Yes.
So we have that. It's late item. So we amend the agenda to have the agenda. Yeah. May I have a motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Yeah. Second. Councillor Krog. Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? All those in favor of the amended agenda as presented? So carried. All right. Going on to the minutes section. We have a motion to adopt the July 17th Committee of the Whole meeting minutes as presented. Mover, please. Councillor Krog, second. Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay. Next item is to a motion to adopt the July 17th, 2017 regular meeting minutes as presented. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson, second. Councillor Tripp. Discussion. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. I have a motion to adopt the August 1st special to go in camera meeting minutes as presented. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Krog. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, next. I have a motion to adopt the August 8th. Keep it down to Aurora there. I have a motion to adopt the August 8th special to go in camera meeting minutes as presented. Thompson, Councillor, seconder, Councillor Krog. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, moving on to item 4, which is delegation for the fall fair. Recommendation is council receives a report for information and discussion. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Krog, second. All those in favor? Is there a delegation here? All fair?
Mr. Mayor, I advised them to come to the evening meeting because the committee of the whole wasn't happening this morning.
Yeah.
I did not receive any feedback back. I reminded them again with another email this morning.
Okay. Oh, well. All right, so we'll receive a report for information. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Hammond.
I'm just curious, it's just that they were not able to secure their gaming grant this year, and I'm just wondering if there's a delegation there, they can explain why.
Unfortunately, they're not present. They were informed.
Of delegation.
They were informed by Deputy CEO and that there was no committee of the whole, and they were informed that there was a regular meeting only, and they didn't come.
So is this for receiving only, or is this for voting on?
To receive the report for information and discussion. That's it. We're not really voting on anything, we're just receiving the report for information. Now we can discuss it. Councillor
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor
I'm just wondering if staff has had discussions with the fall fair representative to find out if they have timelines of when they need this approved by. They're asking for funding for fencing. I'm also curious if they've tried to secure fencing from other locations to borrow rather than to ask for money to buy it.
Okay, I'll direct you to Mr. Drexler. Go ahead. Oh, now go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I only spoke with Dana a couple months ago regarding a few items. This was new to me. This came up about 3 weeks ago. I received an email, and I advised her to fill in the delegation request and come to the committee of the whole meeting. I have had no discussions directly on it, but I think our CAO might, our interim CAO might be able to speak to some items regarding the fencing.
CEO, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship, we had a bit of a chat. I talked to the manager of operations today as well, and because we do have some fencing that we typically do supply to these events, they're kind of like a snow fencing. However, I guess what this piece is that they're asking for is more like their T-bars and posts, so they're a little bit heavy duty, and so I think what they're looking for, this $1,400, is for the rental of this stuff, because my thought was is that if we needed to get some fencing, we would supply it as a city and keep it for other events. I guess at some point, you know, when we usually get these type of things, because I think the actual fencing itself is quite costly. Like I think it's possibly upwards of like about $10,000 to own this stuff. So it likely wouldn't be the best thing to maybe invest our money in. However, things like this that maybe be happening on a period of time that's every year, we would encourage you know, organizations to come when we're doing our budget deliberations so we could actually put this in. Having said that, we do have a community support item within our budget that would allow us to offer certain amounts of money, and we do have funds in there. So I guess if council so wished us to put that forward to them, you know, that would be something that council would like to have, and necessarily something more long term. So.
Councillor Thompson and Councillor Tripp. Or do we, you first? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Tripp. My apologies.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, and I appreciate getting that information, and it's too bad that we don't have a delegation here to actually hear from them, you know, why they are making this request this year. But I really believe it's important to support these events, especially the fall fair. I think that it's something that is really important for this community to get behind and hopefully to expand. I do know a few of the new people who are involved this year, Peter and Evelyn Brown being one couple, and they're a very upstanding couple in the community and very diligent, and I think that we can really count on them to be fiscally responsible and to do a really good job for the fall fair this year.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's unfortunate that this request has come in so late in the game. I'm surmising that it is for the demolition derby that they're proposing, that they want the more substantial fencing. This would probably be something that they could make application to the Phoenix Foundation for a future year. And it's unfortunate we don't give grants in aid, basically that's what they're asking for. And we have a policy in place that says that we don't provide that. So I, regrettably, I mean, I have a long association with the fall fair myself. And I regret that I can't support this. I just don't believe we have the money allocated to that. And it's really unfortunate, but that they may have to reconsider and look at other avenues for funding. They could perhaps approach Director Russell for assistance in this regard, because he also has funding available to him for these kinds of things. I think so. They might want to approach him as well. So I would just put that out there for council's consideration.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, I understand that we have pretty much a brand new board this year trying to turn the fall fair around. I'm in support of what they're doing, and with the demolition derby this year, they're hoping to boost attendance and increase their revenue at the gate. I would be in support of this through our community fund, because I really want to give them a good shot this year and let them turn this around and be able to stand on their own 2 feet. But I think they're going to need some help to do that, so I'd be prepared to go for that. Mr. Mayor, Councilor Butler here.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor
I'm just curious if we could table this to the end of the meeting and if a staff member would be able to try and contact someone from the fall fair. I think it's really unfortunate if you're asking for this much money not to be at the meeting, and just wondering if we could reach out to them, because I know we all do want this event to succeed, and I would hate to see the demolition derby not go ahead because they don't have fencing. So I'm just wondering if it's possible to phone O'Donnell's home or the couple that just mentioning something.
Yeah, but this evening all we're doing is receiving the report for information, and because they did not present themselves, we can reach out and see what we can do for our next meeting.
I think our next meeting's after the fall fair, though, isn't it?
No, it's not. But unfortunately, at this point in time, we can't do anything about it. There's nobody here to represent us.
Who do we use?
Colleen?
It should hang up. Like if I hang everybody up, then I would have to dial all the numbers.
We
That's what I was waiting for. Calling Councillor Rosbeck.
yeah.
Okay, the other ones will go on hold here quickly.
That's right.
Yes.
Our apologies. We're having technical difficulties. We're experiencing them.
Hello, I'm going to conference you back in. Okay, everybody there?
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so is there any other further discussion on this fair issue? If not, I'm going to call the question. All those...
Question, I got cut off.
Okay. The question was to receive the report for information and discussion for the fall fair.
Oh, okay.
And the delegation was not present. They were informed it was, at first it was supposed to be, you're aware of that?
Okay, good.
You good? Okay. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. We move on now to our hearing for the business license for Herbivore Cannabis Inc. I'll give you a quick rundown on the outline. It's going to be the hearing called to order, then the opening statement, the staff report, the applicant submission, the deliberation, council decision, and the hearing adjournment. Having said that, this hearing is convened under Section 60-5 of the Community Charter to consider whether there is reasonable cause to refuse the business license application for Herbivore Cannabis, known as Herbivore, for business premises located at 7361 2nd Street, Grand Forks, BC. While council will consider the business license inspector's rationale for refusal of this license, this is a full reconsideration of this refusal on all the evidence that may be put before council today. It is up to council to determine if it is reasonable to refuse this license in all the circumstances. I will chair this hearing and will say a few words. This hearing is open to the public to observe, but unlike other hearings, members of the public are not given the opportunity to address council. We would ask members of the public in attendance to refrain from expressing themselves during the hearing, and this includes speaking, making sounds, clapping, or other audible expressions of emotion. I would like to remind council that it has convened here today as an administrative decision maker to hear this matter. In this regards, both council and the license applicant have been provided written materials in advance of today. Today will be the opportunity for council to hear directly from city representatives and the license applicant and to ask questions of each. Council members should not consider any materials beyond the written material provided and what they hear today. I would ask that members of council keep their questions relevant to the issues under consideration, and to ensure that each of you keep an open mind and not prejudge the outcome one way or the other until we complete the hearing and complete the deliberations. I will chair the hearing in a manner similar to other hearings and council meetings and recognize each speaker before their comments begin. The agenda for the hearing will be as follows. The City Business License Inspector will review her report to council dated August 21st, 2017. Council may ask questions of the business license inspector and other city staff. The license applicant or its representative may make submissions in response in accordance with its submissions dated August the 7th, 2017. Council may ask the license applicant or its representative questions. Council may then ask questions of any of the speakers and may grant an opportunity to the applicant or business license inspector to respond or clarify the information. Councillor Ross, are you having your own party there?
No.
Somebody is.
No. Not the same thing. Yeah.
Council will then deliberate on the information before them. Council may adjourn, including for the purpose of seeking legal advice in camera. Council will make a decision on the issuance of the license by way of a council resolution in an open meeting. So before I proceed, I note that the city's representatives are present. Could the Herbivore Cannabis Inc. representatives please identify themselves and come forward so we may start the hearing? Who is present representing Herbivore? Is there anyone present? Okay, having none. Okay, we will begin with the presentation by the licensed inspector of her report.
Mr. Mayor, was anybody present?
Nobody was present. Nobody acknowledged any presence.
Thank you.
Oh. Go ahead, Ms. Sheets.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the presentation is just the RFD, which gives a rundown of the background and the history of this particular situation. And the business licensing authority and the bylaws that the city has in place. And so the package is in the, everything's in the agenda, so we've got the report and then all the supporting documentation. We've got the business license application, an article in the Grand Forks Gazette, and then the responses to Ms. Taylor and her board in response to the letters that she had written. And the final letter was for her opportunity to come to have her business license reconsidered by council tonight. So here we are. All the information is in the package, and I will turn it over to council.
Does council have any questions? Councillor Thompson?
And Councilor Ross would like to speak as well.
Okay, you're next on the queue, Councillor Ross.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. In as much as the council is holding this hearing and the applicant isn't in attendance, were we notified that she would not be making any presentations or having anybody represent her here at this meeting or at this hearing?
To our CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. With an email from the applicant, it says that please find attached the letter for reconsideration of the hearing, which is in part of the agenda package. And the applicant also said in the email, please be advised that Herbivore Cannabis Inc. will not be making a presentation at the hearing, but ask that the content of the attached letter be included in the discussion and decision-making process.
Thank you.
Councillor Tripp. Oh, Councillor Ross, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. This has been going on for a number of months, and I've been paying close attention to it, and I have the applicant speak on several occasions, including in our chambers. I've read in detail the history of this case, the decision that was made, the press release that was reported, which was a little bit clandestine in the way that it was reported. And based on the information I have, I would like to put option 2 on the table as the only option that we really morally have in the city of Grand Forks. We're not in the business of Grand Forks to deny people access to medicine.
which basically is the mandate of this business. The fact that the press decided to report in the manner that they did report, many of us on council, and I'm sure in the gallery today, have been subject to become victims of the press, where things have been twisted and said in a way that sheds a light on us as individuals that's not actually representative of what we're saying or who we are. And I think this could be the case in this particular press release, that we seem to be holding a lot of, we're hanging our hats on that press release, is that she said this is a press release. What is happening in Canada today is that we are moving towards legalization. Across this province, from coast to coast to coast, we have shops that are very similar to the one that we are speaking about tonight. And for us to deny the business license is not progressive and not in keeping with allowing people in our community access to the medicine that they require. And many of us in the gallery and in council know people personally in our community that rely on this medicine for their day-to-day well-being. I would like to put option 2 on the table and endorse option 2 as the only way forward in tonight's meeting.
Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad.
There's now a motion on the floor.
No, I don't have a seconder.
You don't have a seconder,
Might be what council.
Well, I'm looking for a seconder on that motion.
Oh, okay.
There's none. Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah. Well, I appreciate Councillor Ross's comments. I unfortunately don't share her sentiments there. I actually have a concern for the public health and safety of the people of this community, especially young people. There have been many studies that have proven that young people under the age of 25 are very severely affected by the very strong chemicals that are in the marijuana derivatives these days. I think the main component there is THC. And I've heard that there's a very strong marijuana derivative on the market that is being sold. And I had heard that it was actually being sold out of this particular establishment before she was no longer in operation. And that stuff is called Shatter. And as a former chaplain working with inmates in the prisons, I would say that virtually 95% of the prisoners who I worked with told me that the reason why that they were on the slippery slope into crime was because they started out with marijuana and soft drugs like that, and also alcohol. Now, I'm just saying what I know to be a fact for where I worked and the people that I worked with. That to me says that there is a real concern for public health and safety, especially of the youth of this community. That's just one reason why I would really be reluctant to re-grant this business license, but there are many other reasons too. That's just one that I'm very concerned about.
Any other comments? Councillor Thompson?
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Hammond, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree in part with what Councillor Ross has said as far as denying people the access to medical marijuana. My concern is that I'm not convinced that this is for medical purposes, and it doesn't require a physician's license to administer or dispense. I'm also concerned about the location in the heart of the downtown in a coffee shop that's unsecure. And we know that we have a drug addiction problem with quite a few people that are in that core area right now. I won't be supporting this. And as far as what the newspaper has reported on this, those were quotes and not an interpretation. So I think maybe she's reading that wrong, but that's just my feeling.
Thank you. If I may just weigh in on this for a few comments myself. There's the concern, the city's concerned on the public health and safety and the enjoyment of other businesses and properties. Furthermore, right now, as of August 24th, 2016, coming from Health Canada, understanding the access to cannabis medical purpose regulations. 1. Storefronts selling marijuana, commonly known as dispensaries and compassion clubs, are not authorized to sell cannabis for medical or any other purposes. These operations are illegally supplied and provide products that are unregulated and may be unsafe. Illegal storefront distribution and sale of cannabis in Canada are subject to law enforcement action. It also remains illegal for any company or an individual to advertise cannabis to the general public. Having said that, there is a new wave, and Health Canada is reviewing applications for this, but at the same time, there's already case law in place right now, as in Abbotsford and Delta, where the municipalities have actually refused business licenses based on the same situation, even though there is talk that it will become legalized, but there's no assurance of that happening yet next year. And based on that, with the case law in place, and municipalities and the province are showing more of an initiative to basically do not issue business licenses is the message that's being put out.
Okay, Mayor Conrad, I'd like to have a word. Put me in line.
Sure, Councillor Thompson, then Councillor Ross. Oh,
No, you're not.
oh, my apologies.
Thank you. Regardless of the personal viewpoints of individual members of council, the fact of the matter remains that marijuana is not a legal commodity at this time. Yes, people who have a medical need and have a certificate from their doctor, and there are options available to them to purchase or grow or have someone grow for them their medicine. And regrettably, Teresa Taylor's application was ahead of its time. And as a member of council, I cannot condone issuing a business license to a business that is operating outside the bounds of the federal laws. And so I would encourage her to hold her business in abeyance until such time as it is legalized and we all know what we're dealing with. I concur with the comments that there is a public health and safety issue. We do have a drug issue in our downtown core. Our business community is feeling the effects of that. And so it's unfortunate. The other thing that she did not provide with her application were any certificates or inspections or from senior levels of government that would allow this kind of an operation. And so I cannot support the issuing of a business license for this purpose. Thank you.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you. Yeah, I think if we go to option 3, where there are some caveats, where they are selling to people with prescriptions only, I think that's something that we need to look at, because physicians are prescribing medical marijuana as a pharmaceutical for treating a myriad of conditions. And in terms of speaking about the product that Councillor Tripp has called Shatter, that's just a concentrated version, which is like any other medicine when concentrated and given out to people with prescriptions for that. I mean, Shatter might be the street name, but it's just a concentrated version of a medicine given to people with a prescription. There's nothing wrong with that. They have a prescription for something, and on the prescription it doesn't say Shatter. That's a street name for something. It's not for recreation, it's a medicine. We're talking about medicine here. People come into the shop, then we can dispense. That we're using language here, that using the language such as shatter which is a little bit of shock and awe for a concentrated medicine. And if we want to use a caveat that they can only dispense to people with a prescription, then I think that's something that we certainly need to consider. And speaking to Councillor Hammond's point, I respect that point. I don't particularly agree with the point, but are we saying that if they came to council with this application, but at a different address, that we would actually consider it? So are we talking about the actual dispensing of medicine, or are we just talking about where that medicine is being dispensed? So let's be clear about that. Okay, so let's just say 2 caveats then. That yes, we give the business license, prescription only, but not in that location.
Just to
That would be
weigh,
option 3 with those 2 caveats.
just to weigh in on your comments, Councillor Ross, again, this is not something personal, but Health Canada has put out a huge documentation on how they're reviewing all of this, and it also says that for individuals who require access to cannabis for medical purposes, for medical need, and who have the authorization of their healthcare practitioner, now be able to access cannabis in 3 ways. They can continue to access quality controlled cannabis by registering with licensed producers. They can register with Health Canada to produce a limited amount of their own medical purposes, or they can designate someone else to produce it for them. But unfortunately, on the factual statement that they make in their documentation, which reads very clear, what remains illegal is what I stated earlier. And this is where, without having any personal agendas or any other issues, the corporation is limited to the fact when it does state, as I stated earlier, storefronts selling marijuana, commonly known as dispensaries and compassion clubs, are not authorized to sell cannabis for medical or any other purposes. So it's irrelevant if not in this location. They are just not legal. And that's the unfortunate, where we're handcuffed as a corporation. We are handcuffed with that statement.
No, we're not handcuffed, because municipalities from coast to coast to coast have legalized or given business licenses to exactly similar applicants.
As I stated earlier, that is...
Delta, go down to Oliver, go to Oliver, go to Paramean, go to Costin. There are dispensaries across BC, our jurisdiction of the boundaries and milk meats, not our jurisdiction, but it's our right in their constituency. There's many of them. And so we're deciding, to say no in Grand Forks, where they're saying okay across, not only this province, but across this country. And we have a high population of people who need in the city of Grand Forks. And I will not be party to saying no to people who need to access this medicine.
Fully agree with you, but there's still access to it. It's not being eliminated.
Yeah, and Health Canada said okay to many medicines that cause birth defects and other illnesses, and then they said no. This is an ancient medicine.
Well, they're not referring it to any other medicine but medicinal marijuana, so
Yeah,
no
maybe
different
that's
terminology.
before. I don't have a lot of faith in Health Canada or the Canadian discussion. Mr. Mayor?
We have Councillor Crog and then...
No.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Hammond.
I just wanted to comment on something on on option 3 that Councillor Ross referred to, and subject to conditions. And I understand, and that's it's not just a concern for me. What is a concern for me is when you put that subject on, all of a sudden we become police, because who's going to monitor that?
Well, we're not actually in the law enforcement business.
I know, but how do we monitor that if we put subjects to it?
Well, I don't know. I guess we just put it there that they only dispense to folks that have their prescription.
But how's that monitored?
And you know what? It's not about us. It covers it covers us. We're covered because we put that caveat in place. We're covered. It doesn't matter what they do as long as we're covered. We're not in the law enforcement business. We put that caveat in place with any business, that you can do this, and this, you can only sell gas and coffee, and if they decide to sell something else, we're not in the business as city council or as a city to monitor this. We put that caveat in place, and I believe that this company take it serious enough that Herbivore Cannabis Incorporated, that they will adhere to the rules. And if they don't, that's who's going to know. We put the rules in place.
I'm in agreement with all of that, Councillor Ross, but at the same token, we're not law enforcement, but we also have to respect the law as a corporation. First and foremost, we have to respect the law. Councillor Crock.
That's the police job. We respect the law, but it's the police job to actually enforce
the law.
Exactly, it says so in Health Cannabis.
Okay, my turn.
Right across the country, they're ignoring it and they're letting it slide.
Okay, couple of things. My understanding was that they were refused a business license, but then operated anyways until they were shut down by the RCMP. So that's my understanding. So I'm sitting there thinking, if they're running without a business license, why do they need a business license? It's not going to change the RCMP's decision. One thing, I was intrigued with option 3 with conditions, but had concerns similar to Councillor Hammett on how it's going to be enforced. But the kicker is the latest report from Health Canada. But the other kicker is, yes, if they were dispensing to people that had an actual prescription, but they have to dispense licensed. Because it says right there that they have access 3 ways from licensed producers. My concern is you don't know for sure what's in anything. Like Washington State, Colorado, a whole bunch of other states have weighed in on it and said, you know what, that's fine. You can have medical, you can have recreational, right? We're in Canada, we're still in the medical phase. We haven't gone recreational, but there was a lot of talk about that when this place opened. But again, if you think about it, to me it's just too early, right? It's going to happen. Like, it's definitely going to happen. It's going to be legalized, and it's going to be legalized for medical, and it's going to be legalized for recreational. And that's the time when a company like Herbivore, if they want to do one or both, then they can do that, because that's what Washington does. There's some that do just straight medical, and they're under really strict regulations on THC content, all of that other stuff. I don't know, and it's too bad that the proponent isn't here, so I could ask questions about sourcing and whether it's coming from licensed producers and it's going to people with prescriptions, or is just anybody. I was going to stop and go in there, still haven't got around to it, right? But yeah, those are the questions that I would want answered. And it's not...
Mayor Conrad?
Go ahead.
Say something?
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Ross.
The applicant has been president of Chambers before, and she actually has answered those questions, so she gets all of her products off of licensed producers, and all of her products are tested. She is very clear about that. And I personally visited her dispensary, and I had a look at the product, and they are all from licensed producers. They are all tested. They are this was extremely professional. She knew what she had. She knew what was being dispensed. She was filling prescriptions. And I can't stay on here any longer. I'm going to lose a cell phone range soon. But, you know, this is like, it's not too early. I think it's, you know what? We are so far behind the ball on this. It's too early. We're talking about ancient medicine here. And now it's becoming clandestine. people overdose on prescription drugs all the time. I don't being used here. I would like to see this to be licensed with the caveat, find a new location, and it dispensed to those with prescription only.
Councilor Tripp?
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I would certainly agree with many of the points that Councillor Krog made. And I just think that why would Health Canada be putting statements like this, you know, Health Canada will evaluate how a system of medical access to cannabis should function alongside the government's commitment to legalize, strictly regulate, and restrict access to marijuana. If they weren't very concerned and actually even certain that there needs to be a lot more study, there needs to be a lot more evaluation of actually how this program is rolled out. So I think we're really getting ahead of the game. Some people are saying we're behind. I don't think so. Things are going to change probably a lot before a final system, a final set of regulations comes into place. And I just think that if we jump the gun and do something before that, we're going to end up having to pull it back anyway. So I just, based on these things and other issues, I certainly wouldn't be in favor of granting the business license.
Mr. Mayor, can I just weigh in on this?
Sure, go ahead, Councilor Butler.
Thanks. Yeah, I really appreciated everyone's conversations here tonight. I hear the arguments on both sides. I definitely sympathize with Councillor Roth. I am in favor of herbal medicine 100% when it is dosed out in its whole herb form. But when it's isolated and concentrated as THC is, it becomes a powerful drug. Just as the coca plant used in a tea form has been drank by the natives, as she said, is ancient medicine. We all know when you concentrate that coca leaf, it becomes extremely powerful. So I would definitely err on the side of caution here for public safety reasons, and would support council if they did choose to move ahead with this in the future to put the bylaw in place first, which is what came before us a month or two ago. I can't remember, and we decided not to put that bylaw in place. So to grant a business license without the bylaw in place first, I think it's putting the cart before the horse.
I have one more comment to make, and it's one that's a bit hard to make because I look at when I read a statement from Health Canada that states for the health and the safety of the public and the community. If you look at all the illegal drug operations that are going on in Grand Forks, in one sense, at least this one is out in the open. Fortunately, it still goes against the law of the land. In one sense, I feel that it might help the situation if we did allow a business license to Ms. Taylor, only for, at least she's out in the open. These other ones, maybe it's just a blind thought, would be more shut down because there's legal operations going on, but unfortunately, we still cannot deem it as legal. And that's the unfortunate, because we're still governed again by the law of the land. Councillor Thompson.
Hearing what you've said, I would just put the following comments for consideration. That if we do grant a business license, if we were to do that, there would be nothing to prevent the RCMP from conducting a raid and possibly arresting Ms. Taylor and charging her. I don't want to be a party to that. I don't want to be a party to endorsing, and I think if we did a business license approval, that's what we would be doing, endorsing an illegal activity. I have my own personal opinion on medical marijuana. I mean, we had that beautiful little child in our presence, the first meeting, one of the first meetings we were at, and who needed and used the oils to prevent seizures. There are many, many good things about the medicine that can happen, but at the moment, it is not legal. And for us to do something, to condone something that's not legal, I cannot and would not be a party to.
Councillor Crowe?
Yeah, just clarification or a statement for clarification. Medical marijuana is not illegal. It's the operating of a dispensary which is illegal.
Okay. Absolutely.
No, I didn't mean to infer that it was.
Yeah, that was just
Yeah.
clarifying that. Okay?
Okay, anybody else? Any other comments? Councillor?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, Councillor Hammond?
Yeah, I think I'd like to go back to the beginning. And originally when Ms. Taylor came to the city to apply for a business license, she was told by our previous CAO that because she was working under, within another premise that had a business license, that she wouldn't be required to have a business license. She had put down at the time that she was doing retail. She chose to go to the newspaper. She chose to make statements, and she chose to apply for her own business license. The city didn't close her down. The RCMP were the ones that came in twice. So with or without a business license, she was still operating, but she was given the opportunity to work under somebody else's business license at the time and chose to go further with it. So we wouldn't be in this situation if she had just gone with the original recommendation and worked under somebody else's business license, seeing as she's in their premise. But I still have concerns about the lack of security within that premise and the potential for problems with having narcotics within a coffee shop that are unsecured. I feel for the safety of the owners of the coffee shop and the patrons within it and anybody else that might be in the street or the vicinity. So that is a real concern for me. I guess that's about it.
Do any other councillors have any comments? As we get to the point where now council will have to make a decision. So I'm going to call the question.
Okay, what's the, to have an option?
Page is that?
No, they're
I'm on page 120.
basically in the hearing part of it, we just have to decide. We're on item 8, where we make a decision on the issuance of the license by way of council resolution.
Okay, but do we not have recommendations? Or not recommendations, we have options.
Yeah, we have the staff report.
Yeah, from the staff report. And option 1 is, I've lost them.
It's on
128, page 128. Yeah, they're up there.
They're just down.
Okay. Refuse to grant, grant with conditions, or just adjourn the hearing and refer it back to staff. Definitely not a fan of number 4. Right? And until something changes, which who knows, it could be within a week, it could be within a month, I don't know, or a year. So we should be picking one of those.
Well, option 3 would be dependent on what the conditions would be.
Yeah, option 3, I can't see how we would ensure that conditions were adhered to. So it comes down to 1 or 2. Anybody want to make a motion?
Councillor Thompson?
That's gonna be weird.
I'll put forward the motion that council refuse to grant a business license to Herbivore Cannabis Inc. at 7361 2nd Street, Cranford.
May I have a second?
Second.
Councillor Crowe?
Yeah, just a quick statement. I notice in a lot of the paperwork back there, Ms. Taylor is referring to another business license, but my understanding legality-wise is that it has no bearing on it. That is a separate entity, so you can't say, we did it for them, you have to do it for me. And I'm sure that if there's no changes to regulations, that when that business license comes due, it'll probably, if it falls under the same thing, then it would meet the same fate.
Sylvia, but that's still a speculative
But
statement.
it's
a speculative statement because we don't know.
separate. I just
Yeah.
wanted to address it.
We can't be governed in the city by
Yeah.
examples or
Yeah.
precedents. Councillor Thompson?
Just a question, the resolution that I put forward is very specific on the location. Through you to our CAO or Lste Inspector or somebody who might have more knowledge on that than me. We are reconsidering the original business license application.
Yeah, correct.
No, I'm not gonna ask you to speculate on
Yeah,
that,
no,
on a
yeah.
different location. We're dealing with this
Yeah,
particular
yeah,
issue.
There's a motion on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So unless there's any other comments, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor?
Option one.
Option one, Councillor Hammett. Councillor Butler, are you in favor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's not in favor?
Oh, sorry, you're asking, am I in favor of option one?
To refuse?
this-
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in favor.
Councillor Hammett?
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, I am opposed to it. The motion is carried.
Mr. Mayor, did you say that you were opposed to the motion?
I'm opposed to the motion.
Really?
Yeah.
You never spoke against the motion, Mr. Mayor. Are you able to inform council as to why you made your decision?
Yep, I made my statement earlier because of all that's going on in Grand Forks. And the RCMP are not, and I'm not condoning the RCMP in any which way, but if they are not able to enforce the illegal marijuana shops, then I just find it a bit of an injustice of what's happened. So that's my view. That's my vote.
Sidewalks.
Nope, no motion is carried.
Do we have those here?
What?
Oh,
Now we have to adjourn.
adjourn the hearing.
Where is my papers?
A motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the hearing, please. Have a mover. Councillor Thompson, seconder, Councillor Crowell. This hearing is adjourned.
Can I make a motion to receive all the reports, written reports from members of council?
Just a second, let me get my computer back on board and my phone.
Will we receive them for discussion?
Okay, reports, questions, and inquiries from members of council. Recommendation, all written reports to council submitted August 21st, regular meeting be received. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Crowell, Councillor Thompson.
I have a question.
Discussion, go ahead.
Can I get in line there too, Mr. Mayor?
Sure.
Actually, yes, Councillor Butler, my question is on your report and your, is that a notice of motion that you're including in there?
Well, Councillor Thompson, with such a short timeline before the UBCM, I know proper procedure under our policy would require staff to come back with a report and terms of reference for a committee. But I was hoping that council might have an interest in discussing with the stakeholders in the community for 2 meetings prior to the UBCM to get their input as to what we can present on behalf of them to the minister so that we have more of a collective voice to speak to the minister with.
Councillor Thompson.
Well, thank you, Councillor Butler. My concern is that if I'm going to be meeting with people prior to the UBCM, I want to meet with those who are professionals in healthcare, RCMP. My concern is that, and perhaps inviting the chairs of the Whispers and Beth to come in at an appropriate time. But I want to, and I think it's very important that when we meet with the Minister of Health and Addictions, that we speak from some knowledge and some issues and things that we can take for asks. And I don't think meeting with an ad hoc or a select committee is going to allow us sufficient time to do that, because we then have to operate under the terms of our procedure bylaw, which means posting notice of meetings and having them recorded and the like, where if we had a roundtable or a task force, as the mayor had suggested, perhaps some of them, we could meet with them prior to UBCM, meet with them after UBCM, when kind of a Director Russell is available. There's a myriad of issues that, well, I think, I appreciate what you're trying to do here. I just don't think that it's going to work well in the timeframes that we have.
And
May I respond to that, Mr. Mayor?
sure, go ahead, and I've got a comment on that afterwards.
Sure. So the reason for having a select committee is so that notes and minutes will be taken. At a roundtable discussion, I don't feel that we would have the proper documentation. I would like to have something in writing from the RCMP, from IHA, from mental health, from the fire department, from city staff, from the professionals in our community, telling the community what they've done to date to deal with this issue in our community, where they're falling short, what their issues that they're struggling are with this issue, and what they need in assistance from the provincial government in order for their organizations to better handle the issue. Now, I realize it is a short timeline. It's hard to get people together for 2 meetings prior to the UBCM. I was hoping that with an email going out, that if they couldn't attend, that they could respond back via email to answer those 3 questions for us. I definitely think that Habitat and Best and Whispers need to be involved if you feel that that would be better handled at a later date. I have set the timelines for this committee to meet once again following the UBCM as a follow-up, and then to deal with this on a long-term basis, to have the standing committee formed by the mayor under the community charter, under the proper procedure bylaw of the community charter, to record those minutes, document them, and advertise the meetings accordingly. With a task force, I don't really want to see an ad hoc type of environment. I think you said the same thing, that you want to see it follow a procedure bylaw so that proper minutes are taken, proper notice of meetings is given out, that everything's done in an orderly way. And I know it's short timelines. If council doesn't have an appetite for that, I understand. I just really think it would better our position with the minister if we were organized as a community to go into that meeting.
Councillor Crock?
Mr. Ryan?
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we need to go to the UBCM and meet with the minister, not with our hat in hand, but with a plan in place. But I think a task force is sufficient to do this. I think we have proper people in place in our community that can put a good business plan together. And I think we're going to get a lot more from the provincial government if we go there with a plan, rather than just asking for money or for a solution on their behalf. I think if we show them that we have an action plan and ask for their assistance in implementing this, I think we'll get a lot further, and I think that a task can work a lot quicker, and there's no reason why we can't have minutes and proper procedure in place without having to form a standing committee.
So just to respond to that, I'm confused as to what a task force is in everybody's minds, because a task force is not mentioned in the community charter. There is no procedure to govern a task force under the community charter. As far as I can see in there, it only outlines a select committee and a standing committee, and it does detail how both committees should be formed and operated. If you want to call it a task force and just get everybody together ad hoc I think that's better than nothing, and I would definitely be agreeable to that. I would just like to see it fall under the jurisdiction of the community charter. So.
I just want to see it happen soon.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd like to see a meeting happen, at least one meeting happen before we go to the UBCM, so that we can have at least the start of a business plan in place.
Yeah, so how do we make that happen, Councillor Hammond?
Well, I believe that invitations have already been sent out to members of the community to be part of this task force. And I think the mayor will have to answer that.
At the preliminary stages, a lot of the stakeholders would not be able to make the timelines that we are talking about. One being Director Russell for one, because I've spoken to him. Unfortunately, I hate to invoke the statement that politics works very slow, but it does. You're not going to be able to get this done so fast. And to go in front of any ministers without any terms of reference, without identifying actual stakeholders, I feel this is going to be very, very unfounded.
Mayor, is this not something that can be conducted by email, that we could send out a survey to the different stakeholders and await their response via email?
The way I understood it, when I spoke to some of the stakeholders, we were planning to initially have a preliminary meeting where all the terms of references were going to be put in place, and at that point in time, the views of all of the stakeholders, each individually, what their input was going to be. I don't think that is something that should be done by email. That's a Band-Aid remedy type, and if you wish to form a select committee, I encourage you to do so, but then there's no need for a task force, then you can run a select committee if council so chooses. And I will back
Mr. Mayor, a select committee is only formed for a short time. A standing committee that is formed by the mayor runs indefinitely on topics that are ongoing within the community. So by forming a select committee, that's not to preempt your task force or standing committee. It's only something for a short time before the UBCM to gather as much information as possible. And then absolutely, as you said, when Director Russell's available and when all the stakeholders are available, you can get together on a more permanent basis.
Why would you want to invoke certain stakeholders when all are not available before the UBCM, and then expect the same stakeholders then to change gears and go to a standing committee? That makes no sense. We either form the proper committee from the get-go and give it the timelines required, or it's not the way to do things. That's in my opinion.
Councillor Clark,
I would hate to see this task force or standing committee delayed because one member can't attend, and with all due respect to Director Russell, this is a city issue that's impacting the city of Grand Forks at this moment, and not so much the regional district. And although his input would be beneficial, I don't think that we should be delaying this. It is a city problem, and I think the city needs to get on it right away.
Councillor Krog will be speaking, but then I encourage you then to form your committee and see where it goes. Councillor Krog.
Okay, I was just looking at the idea of the email. Yeah, it's not face-to-face, but it is now. It's the technology that everybody uses to try and get a doctor to come and sit in a council chamber or anywhere else for a couple hours for a meeting isn't going to happen. But that same doctor could express their concerns and give input over email, because they could do it at 2 o'clock in the morning if they wanted. So if there was a survey sent to the people that we were looking at listing for a task force, and let's just see what kind of response, because this is going to be our opportunity to meet with the new minister, and because they're newly elected, they're probably a little bit more happy to help than others. So it would at least give us something. It'd be the shortest and the quickest way to gather that information. So that would be my suggestion.
Torcio.
Your Worship, we already have the briefing notes that we'll be taking to UBCM that council has reviewed, which is very, very high level, and a suggestion maybe from the staff perspective is that we already have invites out to certain stakeholders within this problem that we have. And a suggestion would be is to forward a copy of our briefing notes to those stakeholders and ask them to please provide some written suggestions so that the council members that are attending the UBCM could substantiate the notes that they have, just say that this is coming from the stakeholders of our community, and that might help to get things going. And then the fact that maybe they see that there is going to be some sort of a task force or a select committee in the future, which indicate that the community is willing to move forward and work with the province.
Yes, you'd have more collaborative.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second your motion, Councillor Cross. I'll remove mine from the table then and second yours.
Can you read the motion back?
What did she just say? Anybody? No, it's to send, be it resolved that we send our speaking notes, briefing notes, and the information that we're meeting with the ministers. And here's our notes. Is there any feedback on those? Suggestions? Anything? I like the Councillor Butler's comment about, is there anything stopping them from doing their job, or what assistance do they need, and then get it back, but a lot shorter. I resolved what she said.
It's written in the report if you want to just copy it from there.
Okay. All those in favor? And opposed? You're opposed?
No, I was in favor, but I want to say something.
Can't be both.
No, I already voted it. I'm going to ask to be excused for a minute because I have to go to the bathroom because I think I'm dealing with kidney stones. Yay! I'll be right back.
It's more information we need.
I know,
but it's okay.
But they want an explanation. I'll fill out a form.
Go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Through you two, I can feel, do we get a copy of the briefing notes for the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions? No, have you sent them all? I have the one.
This middle of this week is when they're going to be going out. We're waiting for the one for the Municipal of Housing Affairs to be prepared, and so I want to send them all out at the same time. Okay. And I advise the ministries that these will be following the their separate covers.
Okay, so now, Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, if we can just address one question that I had in my report. I was wondering if I might be able to get a report from staff on how much the city received, or if the city indeed did receive anything for the camping and RV collections for the use of Dick Bartlett Park and the arena parking area for the Cannabis camping. I just was wondering, I heard out in the community, and there was literature being circulated around that there were fees charged of both $70 or $40 respectively for RVs and tenters. And I just was wondering whether or not the city received any of that money back, or did that go directly into go to Cannabis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak to the fact of if we could charge anything for any of that to get some money potentially back from Cannabis. In front of council was a fees and charges bylaw in the spring, where the council decided to not have a 5% fee that we would be able to charge on city property for facility rental or anything like that. This was chosen to be taken out at that point, which was meant for situations like this. And it was supposed to get further analysis from staff, and I believe our Deputy Manager of Operations is going to be bringing something forward in the fall to analyze this a little bit more, so there'll be a little bit more detail. And I think Mr. Reed is going to speak to maybe receiving some money for some other purpose of where we got some funds back.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the organizers of Cannabis did have a use agreement with the facilities, but they also did donate $9,000 to the city for electrical upgrades that were done in the past and just for future things that the city wanted to do. So they did donate some money to the city.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, I'd also like to remind council that Cannabis donated $50,000 back into the community through the nonprofit groups.
Thank you. Councillor Tripp?
Thank you, Mayor Clement. Yeah, I guess my comment about that would be that that isn't actually money coming back to the city. Those are certain nonprofit organizations that may have small select groups that benefit from that money. But in terms of the city and the taxpayers, I was just interested if there was maybe some way that, because looking at that, if we're conservative about how much money was brought in by them, it probably was around $35,000. That'd be a conservative estimate. And I just am wondering whether or not the city could maybe, as I've said in my report, sharpen the pencil a little bit on that. I do understand that Cannabis has given $9,000, but I believe that was for upgrades for the lighting, wasn't it, against the lighting at James Donaldson Park that the city paid for to have done for them. So, yeah, I'm just wanting to bring that forward.
Can I respond to that, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, go ahead, Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, I just want to remind that $35,000 that they made from the lease from that property, which basically didn't cost us a whole lot of money in maintaining, has benefited this whole community, and that money will circulate through town. So it has benefited the city. It has benefited the economics of the businesses in our community, every restaurant, every business downtown. And I think that's the focus that we need to look at. Is it beneficial for the whole community? You talk about recovering money back to the taxpayers, and I think Cannabis brought a lot of money into this community, which will go back to the taxpayers, because whether it be increased hours, extra jobs, just extra spending, it circulates around town, and that is money an economic boost to our community.
Mr. Mayor, can I weigh in on this quickly?
Sure.
Yeah, I have to agree with both councillors. Cannabis, I was really impressed with the way they cleaned up the campground. You know, the next day drove by there was no mess. Everything was cleaned up, and I haven't heard anything from Public Works that there was any damage done. It didn't look like there was. On the other hand, when staff brings forward the youth bylaw in the fall, it might be something to consider for next year, that there could be a small contribution from those camping fees to offset the cost of Public Works maintaining the facility, emptying garbages, bathrooms, whatever that they've done down there. It does take staff time to do that. And we are always looking at a way to share the tax burden across the different sectors, and a little bit extra for the rental of the facility I don't think is outrageous to ask from them.
Okay. So I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Mr. Reed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarification, in the past, the organizers of Cannabis did use city staff to clean washrooms and deal with garbage and that sort of thing for support for the event. But this year, they did hire janitorial services to clean the washrooms, and they had porta potties, and they took care of the garbages. And they're really evolving in the organization of the event. And at Public Works, we had no issues with how it went. So.
Good to know. Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Thank you. Okay, unless there's any other discussion, all those in favor to receive the written reports? Anyone opposed? So carried. The RDKB rep report, the meetings, most of them have been canceled, so there's nothing to report. So we'll move on to item 8A, 72nd Street Sidewalk Design Options. From our Manager of Development Engineering, the recommendation is that council choose an option for advancing the project. Yeah, we can do this. Councilor Tripp, seconder. Councilor Thompson. Okay. Councilor Thompson.
Just a comment. My husband and I had a friend drop in today who lives directly across the street from the Silver Kettle. And he was telling us about witnessing the residents from the Silver Kettle, more particularly in the winter than in this time of year, almost being hit by vehicles going down that road. Some of the drivers are just totally irresponsible. And, you know, he said one of these days somebody is going to get hit. And that's going to be a real issue. And I know that the Women's Institute has been before us on very numerous occasions with respect to a sidewalk. We're really going to have to give serious consideration to doing something there. Whether it's a temporary fix or something, but we cannot put those people's lives in jeopardy.
Can we end on this one, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilor Butler and Councilor
Yeah,
Crowe.
I completely agree with Councilor Thompson. This has been on the books for way too long, and we need to start doing something now, whether it's just paving and extending the width of the road and putting in pedestrian or bicycle lane with lines so that walkers and wheelchairs have more room on the road, or we actually go with a full sidewalk and just do half of it this year from Silver Kettle to Extra Foods. My only concern with the full sidewalk is that with the gutter, that there's a tripping hazard or a danger for people in wheelchairs and walkers that they could fall off that curb. At the same time, it does look a lot more professional, and it looks like we've done the job right if we put in the full sidewalk. I did talk to a lady from the Women's Institute today to see what their preference was, because I couldn't remember if they'd actually been clear with us on that. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to say whether or not they had come to a decision on that either. So I'm just wondering if there's anyone in the audience there tonight from the Women's Institute that would have more information on that, or if council remembers anything being said.
Councilor Crowe, and then I'd like to weigh in on a few questions for staff.
Yeah, a couple of things. One is, I think everybody would want to see a full sidewalk go all the way through past the actual park to meet up with the other road, actually, all the way to Extra Foods. But cost-wise and time-wise, full sidewalk can't be done in 2017 within the current budget. Design 1 is less expensive and it can be completed in 2017 within the current budget. There's easier snow clearing and easier storm water management. So that I would like to put forward a motion for option 1, which is the full length bike lane style for
Councilor
170.
Todd, just to clarify, option 1 says extend roadway north for walkway on south. Are they talking about putting it on the north side of the road for option 1 rather than on the south side of the road?
Extend
Page
road-
183.
extend roadway north to allow for walkway on south
I think they're just gonna widen it on the north.
to our Manager of Development Engineering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The option 1 is actually to extend the roadway and actually move the roadway, so the driving portion of the road
It's more on the
to
north
the
side.
north. And that would mean that we'd need to basically put down a base and sub-base for drivable surface. So that would be to move the roadway north, but the sidewalk would still be on the south. Option
Okay.
2 is still the sidewalk on the south, but we would go with just a 100 mil base and asphalt top to it, so it's quite a bit less expensive. We don't have to design it for cars to drive on it, so it's just designed as a walkway. Option 3 is the full build out with curb and gutter, and there were discussions about possibly putting in a rollover curb to separate the driving lane from the sidewalk as well, which was not included in this estimate, but I do believe it could be done. It could be done after, or would we be looking at? So I wasn't in on that conversation. I was just.
Question
And
I,
option 2 is quite a bit cheaper than the option 1 as well.
question I have, how are we dealing with the stormwater situation?
We
Because
don't
that was
have-
something
we
our
don't have a
former,
gutter.
pardon me?
So just,
Yeah, well, a gutter goes where? Where does the water go?
You don't have a curb and gutter if you're just paving the road wider.
To our manager of development engineering.
We would be shouldering and swaling, so the water would be draining off. It's extremely well drained soil up there. We're really lucky on that aspect of it. So it would be swaled away and a slight swale for the water to dissipate.
No danger if we get in the later fall, we have frost and then you have ice. That's a situation, then we're liable because it's our asset.
You're heavy sanding this.
Yeah, very heavy sanding. So actual extra costs. Okay. Councillor Tripp?
In every option.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. I know that you had said that you had some things to say too, but when I actually went online to see what this might look like, and I'd really be interested to hear what the people who are going to be using that sidewalk would rather have. There's a lot of different variables here. We've got, the cost of doing the full sidewalk from the whole way. Would we be able to maybe just take, if we decided to do that, would be able to take the sidewalk maybe just from Cypress Way this time round and move it down? Or when I went online and was looking at different pictures about how different sidewalks, their sidewalk separations occur, I saw something really neat, and it was a sidewalk separation that was it was almost like a cement bollard, but very, very low to the ground. So it was maybe only maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches that would have been maybe about 4 inches wide. That would go, and I don't know what that would do in terms of runoff or anything like that. But I was thinking if there was maybe some kind of an option to put some kind of a separation, just so for safety of people who are actually in that walkway. Because let's face it, a white line on the road doesn't really, I mean, even when I'm walking, sometimes when I see cars coming, toward me and I'm off on the other side of the white line, I'm still wondering, are they getting pretty close, and I'm trying to move off the road. But if there was some kind of a lip or something that you could put there that would, that if traffic were coming along and they were going to hit it, they'd certainly know that their tire was bumping up against something, and maybe it could even be painted but that it would only stick up, maybe, I don't know, a couple of inches or 1.5 inches.
Yeah, speed bump, a couple of them. That'll slow them down. The concern is, has any discussion gone on with the property that the city disposed of to Mr. Mike Combs about the sidewalk? Because we're putting sidewalk in front of a property that's privately owned now.
And I've not heard from the owner of that property for quite some time, so.
It might have been a good discussion to get into, because as we discussed previously with our former CAO.
Well,
might be
we have had
negotiable.
discussions with him in the past about the potential uses of the property, and as far as I know, he hasn't made any decisions, and so without knowing what he wants to do, it's very difficult for us to wait.
Because there's the entrance and the exit portions again, which don't have to be redone. Sidewalks, if he decides to have entrances put in there, and he turns it into whatever his proposed suggestion is for that property. We're putting a city-owned asset in front of a property that's privately owned. that we have to maintain?
The sidewalk would be on city property still. Yeah, it would be it would be within the road right away, but yes, and we don't have any indication from that owner what he wants to do with that property at this point.
Yes,
Can I ask a question of Dee Mr. Mayor? I was just wondering, would not the developer be responsible for repairing any damages to the sidewalk that would be incurred during his development?
that would be damages, yeah. But if he requires an exit and entrance, is that the city's responsibility then to redo it? Councilor Clark.
Were you gonna respond, or? Okay, want me to, hey, I'll respond. Yeah, if he damages it or whatever. But that's just another rationale to go with the extended roadway south. It's 710 meters. If you look at that one, that shows 665 going that way. So we can do 710 for half the cost of a 384 footer, right? So that's half the cost of three. This whole community, yes, there's been residents of Silver Kettle that have wanted access and more freedom, and they've been here numerous times trying to get us to finally make a decision to do something. And I see that we can do this within our existing budget of the budget of 2017, so I can't see why we're messing around and 68, like the whole city is short of sidewalks, right? So the more bang we can get for our buck, because if we're at 176,000 at 710 feet, so for the same price as 380 feet, we can get 1,420 feet throughout the city. So that makes sense, and it's for everybody's use. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Hammond, go ahead.
Yeah, and like Councilor Cox said, along 68, there's paved right off to the side and a white line painted there, and people seem to be walking okay. My concern with 72nd is that if it's just paved, what's preventing people from parking along the side of the road and then back to the same problem again with people in wheelchairs or walkers trying to access that and having to go around parked cars?
Why?
We'd have to have proper signage up.
You paint
But you can also
the lines
put a
yellow, and nobody's parking on 68.
That's because there's no property along there.
Who's gonna be, okay, whatever.
Question.
I just want to do
Councilor
something.
Through you to our manager of operations. On the highways, when you're driving, and if you go over your car, and you have that little lumpy thing that reminds you that you have to. Can that be done on the, if we were to do something like that with pavement to warn drivers that you're straying too far over to the right? At a reasonable cost?
Fortunately, if you hit somebody by the time you hear the noise too late.
Hopefully, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, rumble strips could be put in. It would raise awareness if somebody was dozing off or maybe just getting too close to the line, I guess, but we just weren't sure if the people using the sidewalk needed some further assurance of a lip of some kind, but it would cut down on maintenance issues if it was a rumble strip.
It's just something that's going to slow these people down.
Councilor Crog.
Okay, I had originally made a motion for option 1 from the original recommendation, which was option 1, which was bike lane. And then once you've chosen that, you go down into the other options. And that's where you say how long you want it and how much you want to spend for it. That's where option 2 comes in. So
Okay.
I'm gonna make a motion for option 1, which is the bike lane, and choosing option 2, the 710 meters.
I'll second your motion, Councillor Cox.
And tell me exactly what distance the 710 meters covers?
710 meters. It was funny, come on.
Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I think that if it's possible and if council would be willing, could we hear a response or something from some of the people who are here? And also too, I would like to get the question answered that I asked about the potential, if it would be possible, to have some kind of a separation, I don't know what you call it, something there. How much that would add to the cost.
Our management development engineer.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's what I mentioned was a rollover curb or something along those lines that have some breaks in it to allow for drainage. It's kind of what you're talking about. It's just kind of a built-up bump, basically, that doesn't interfere too much with snow removal. Maybe less than some other things. Rubble strips would probably be better in that regard. I mean, we did look at a lot of options. There are like posts that are on a spring that get knocked over and fall over, and there are different options like that, but they do tend to create a fair amount of maintenance. They don't look very good after very long, and because they're just usually plastic or something, they tend to get run over. So, yeah, we've looked at a bunch of different options. We can still look at some more options for that. Those costs aren't included in this at this time, so that is something that maybe keep looking into and come up with something that will work. And maybe it'll be a combination of different things at different locations along the road. Maybe something different at intersections or at the south end or something. So something we can continue to look into.
But we're at least starting somewhere.
Yeah, lots of cameras.
Yeah.
Get license numbers. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Any more discussion?
What's the motion?
Option
Option
1. Option 1 with a weigh-in of option 2.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
My apologies, I just noticed in the report, I think it's a little confusing. I think Councilor Crog caught up on that.
Yeah, it says that.
Yeah, it's got option 1, 2, 3 up in the report, but the options down here are, option 1 is to extend on the north, which includes the actual road extension, which I don't think we want to go that way up. That's going to be much more expensive if you go with that. The option to go, you're still getting the sidewalk on the south. This is option 2 is with the sidewalk on the south. That's extending the pathway on the south.
Did that go to extra foods, that 710 meters?
Yeah.
Yeah, they both do pretty much. It's a little bit different, but I'm thinking. I'm sorry, I was gone last week, so I'm just a little bit out of the loop here, but.
I go touch the screen.
Your worship, I think what the manager of North Development Engineering is saying is that option 2 is giving council the more bang for their buck. Is that what you're saying, that it's going to be the more economical and the longest?
So basically it becomes a paved sidewalk.
And fits in to our existing budget.
Paved sidewalk, which was originally discussed.
Yeah.
But I thought Councilor Crog was making a motion for option 2 because he was talking about extending it 710 meters.
That is the one.
Yeah, if we're looking at the 3 options that are right under the graphic or the drawing, it's option 2. If you look at the beginning of the report, option 1 gives you concrete or bike lane. You pick one of those, and then you go, or you defer it to 2018 again. So I'm not sure when first arrived here, 2015. Right?
Right, your worship, if the manager of financial officer could just speak with regard to the funding piece on that. I think she has a bit of information that she needs to offer council.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment that the current financial plan has $150,000 in it. So that would, depending on which option we choose, we would need to have a resolution to amend the financial plan for the additional amount. So, and as I am doing a financial plan amendment to go to the first 3 readings in September, I could include that.
Okay.
Because initially this was not one of our priorities because it was still in the red section, if I recall, when we looked at the financial plan last time as projects, correct, the sidewalk?
It is in the financial plan at $150,000. I believe it was reduced a little bit from last year. It was just over 200,000.
Okay. So
Can we call the question, Mr. Mayor?
What can we
I don't
add
even know
to
what
that
the question
list?
is anymore.
It's to go with option 2.
Option 2 with an increase
Yeah,
to the,
yeah. But we're going with option 2, which is the 176. If we talk about it more, it's going to be 178. We're 179.
well, no, but we have to.
Yeah, and then with, I think everybody, if we go with that, I don't think anybody has a problem redoing the financials to put the extra required money, and if that
should we-
requires for rumble strips or whatever.
Should we be giving direction though to our CFO to include that in the budget amendment?
Yeah, so shouldn't we do this first?
Yeah, because right now the resolution reads that we're just choosing an option to advance the project.
Okay.
This is not a resolution that we're doing a project, we're just advancing the project.
We're advancing to do it.
Yeah,
Not to do it.
Let's just do it.
Question? Somebody calling it?
Okay, so option 2, but not option 2 in the actual.
Yeah, this one.
The option.
Extending the roadway south
I got
for
it.
walkway on
I got it.
side.
Option of the procedural
Yeah.
way of doing it. Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Sorry? Did I hear any comment? Hello, you still there?
No. No
We're in
problem.
favor. I'm in favor.
Okay.
I'm in favor.
Okay, motion's carried. Councilor Crock, you want to?
Another motion for the CFO to include it in the budget amendment request thingy that she said.
Can we include the cost of rumble strips?
But that would be,
Rumble strips or
can they just, sorry, can we just have a look at, like, is there a huge cost difference, which is the best? But this way, we're actually doing it, and then we'll see what we need to do for the separation. And if we find out before the budget amendment that it's another 10,000 or 15,000, whatever works the best.
But you, through you, your worship, to our CFO, when were you bringing the budget amendment bylaw forward? First meeting in September, second meeting in September?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I was planning on bringing it to the September 5th for the 3 readings, but I mean, if necessary, I could push it back to the second.
Or forward. Oh, no, I guess.
The second.
Project done before the snow block?
My only concern is that we have the right amount of money in the amendment, so that you're not having to come back. So if that could be, that bylaw could be brought forward to the second regular meeting for 3 readings, that might be better, because then you'd have a time to get the actual dollar value in place, and if you have to increase the budget for are they rumble strips? Is that what they're called? I learned something. So we know what the true cost estimates are going to be for that.
How stable are our costs regarding asphalt right now? I know that we've always had a problem in Grand Forks getting any kind of asphalt.
Oh, we got a plan.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Okay, I'll be wordy on this one. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the asphalt it's really dependent on the infrastructure grants or the projects that are going on. There's definitely lots going on right now, so we have had some trouble this year acquiring the asphalt to do some patching and stuff like that. But the larger the project, obviously, the easier it is. So we have a couple coming up that hopefully we have better success with.
So you're planning on a consolidated project, more of a consolidation of more projects so that the cost is down?
More likely to succeed.
Yeah, we're hoping that if they're in the area that they're looking to add to the projects that they have. So maybe not consolidating them so much, but just having the timing work out.
We have a late item, which is, I believe, to do with asphalt. And if who knows, if that's going and it's time, then see if we can get them to do both at the same time. So.
Okay, so we have moved on with that.
Yeah.
So, do we have a resolution on this one?
Yeah,
We already voted.
we've already done.
Did we?
Yeah, we're finished. Okay, moving on to the information items. The second quarter financial report, Chief Financial Officer, recommendations. Council received a memorandum for information. Motion, Council Crog. Seconder, Council Tripp. Discussion.
Yeah, I see that, I'm not sure with this one, but I do notice that the, all the 10Bs, if they could be accepted for information all at once. So 10A is separate, but there's like 5 10Bs. So I got ahead of myself, so.
Okay. Councilor Tripp.
Thank you to our CFO for preparing this information. It's real helpful. I just had one question about the amount on page 188, which is the total capital for the second quarter 2017. Was that amount anywhere recorded in the next chart, the reserve income and transfers? CFO.
Okay, sorry, CFO, I'm just reading the
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, that amount actually isn't reflected because the transfer, we don't do the transfers from reserves until the end of the year. Projects are complete.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, we've got what we should probably do. This one and then go back.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do the sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Dorsey.
Your worship, we had the first and seconder for the piece for the bike lane and the length of it. However, the motion, I believe that Councilor Krog put in a second motion, but it wasn't seconded and it wasn't voted upon. For the
I
motion
seconded
piece.
Councilor Crog's motion.
For the budget?
Right.
No, she was talking about the sidewalk?
No, for the budget, because Councilor Crog made a second motion
To bring.
to bring into the budget, for the budget to be
I thought
amended.
I seconded that. I'm pretty sure I did.
Yeah, I thought you.
Well, the recorder's
There was
pretty.
no
Well, we didn't vote
There was
on
for
it.
sure no voting on it.
Okay,
No voting.
we're ready to vote.
All right. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. So now let's fast forward back to where we were. Yeah, the memorandum for information. Unless there's any discussion, all those in favor to receive the memorandum? Anyone opposed? So carried. Monthly highlight
I
reports.
would make a motion to receive all the attendees for information, and if any counselors have any questions, they could pick them out for each specific one rather than to go through each one.
Okay, well, I think the resolution states quite clear, receive the reports for information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have questions on
We won't answer.
it.
Comment?
Do I have a seconder on that motion?
I'll second it.
Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, perhaps this could be passed on to our bylaw enforcement officers, that I observed a homeless camp yesterday on the south side of the BMX track on the river's edge. And it appeared somebody was, they had blue bags and a number of things, so I didn't get, up close and personal, but I would appreciate if that could be looked into.
Doesn't he know we don't use blue bags?
To our CEO.
Your Worship, our Manager of Operations just wanted to elaborate on an operational piece that happened on the weekend, so we just wanted to speak to it. Good.
Go ahead, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out that we had some vandalism at one of our beacon sites. So the batteries were taken and left it inoperable, so we weren't able to take medevac for the weekend. But kudos to our RCMP, they did get them back right away, so we were able to put that back in service today. So just wanted to send a thank you out to the RCMP.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mr.
Oh, Councillor
Mayor,
Tripp.
can I ask a question of the Manager of Operations?
Sure, but Councillor Tripp's ahead of you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Just in the bylaw services review, and I know the bylaw officer isn't here to comment on this, but I just was wondering, we've all been aware that there seem to be many transient camps around, and I just wondered at his success in removing these. It just says there's one transient camp there removed, and I'm just wondering how, I guess, to me, I wonder if he's really struggling in that area and what might be able to happen to help him get more of them removed.
Councillor Butler.
Great. In his report, he talks about flail mowing throughout town. I'm not familiar with that term, and I'm just wondering, with the amount of dry grass that's in town, if there's been any consideration for next year to including something in the budget to help remove a lot of the dry grass on our empty lots.
Our Manager of Operations.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So flail mowing is a large tractor that cuts down the weeds on the side of the road and does our alleys and fields, does around the airport to keep the combustibles down and the line of sight for motorcycles and cars for the year and that. So we did have that going all over town, and then we had to cut it short because of the high risk of fire. So normally we would do some more flail mowing, but we were unable this year. So.
Yeah, that was my concern, was the risk of fire in the large dry grassy fields. Is there any way that we could cut that down next year before the risk of fire sets in?
I guess we would have to implement a bylaw. Property owners have to.
No, I'm talking about on city-owned property.
On city-owned.
Yeah, we just need no floods next year, and then we'll get right on it.
Okay.
But has there anything been done in regards to, as certain communities have bylaws in place, and maybe council should consider this, that property owners that don't maintain their properties with high grass at this time is high risk for adjacent property owners that have houses?
Right, we do have a boulevard it's not a boulevard bylaw, it's a traffic bylaw that speaks to the condition of the boulevards in front of your residents, that you're supposed to maintain them in a reasonable fashion. So we have pointed that out to a few people, and they've been fairly good with that. So.
The problem seems to be though with the empty lot.
That's what I'm referring to, the empty lots, because I know in Kelowna there was, at that time, they used to get the owners to take care of it, or they would take care of it and put it on their tax bill.
Mm-hmm.
And that might alleviate a lot of the problems, because on certain streets you've got grass that's almost 3 feet high. And it's brown and dry, so all it would take is a spark or anything, and then you have people's houses that are in jeopardy. That's something we should seriously look into. Okay, anything else?
One more question, Mr. Mayor, and I know you guys love this topic, but I'm just curious, this new zone water meter, are we zone metering some of our sections of town now?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we did have a long service line that went to an industrial, or 2 industrial properties. So we put a zone meter at our point, so they had breaks in the past, and we don't have control of their lines, so they could tie in prior to that. So we just wanted to make sure that we were capturing everything that left our system. So we put one larger meter on for that commercial properties.
That's great. Also wondering about the tender for the lagoon desludging, who it was awarded to, and where you're at with that project.
So we're looking at taking some of the bulrushes out of the lagoon, and then doing some of the site prep for the geotubes. Vanborn was the successful proponent for the desludging. Vanborn. So they will be starting the beginning of September.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, unless we have any other questions, I'm going to call the question. All in favor of receiving the reports? Anyone opposed? So carried. Moving on to the bylaws section of our agenda. 11A, Bylaw 2036-A1 2017 to 2021, the financial plan amendment from our Chief Financial Officer. The recommendations the Council receives for introduction and discussion. 2017 to 2021 Financial Plan Amendment Bylaw number 2036-A1, and refers the first 3 readings of the bylaw to the September 5th, 2017 regular meeting of Council. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson.
I would move it with a change in the date to September 18th for the meeting.
To our Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mention that the late item will also impact financial plan amendments, so I don't know at what point we want to discuss that. But as far as, I can certainly just change the date.
So I need a second for that amendment. Councillor Tripp. All in favor of the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amended resolution? Anyone opposed? So carried. 11B, Bylaw 2040, 2018 Permissive Tax Exemption. Again, from our Chief Financial Officer. Recommendation is that Council receives for introduction and discussion Bylaw number 2040, 2018 Permissive Tax Exemptions, and refers the first 3 readings of the bylaw to the September 5th, 2017 regular meeting of Council. Second. Councillor Tripp. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Moving on to our late item. Chase.
That is the 27th Street or 22nd Street paving.
Yeah.
That was sent out as a late item yesterday, Friday. And I would like to move that council amend the budget for the 22nd Street multi-utility project by $150,000 to allow it to proceed with the only compliant bid, and that council increase the budget through I'm going to say the general capital fund.
So that would be number 2, your
Yeah.
option number 2.
Through the reserves.
Through the reserve, so option 2.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? Councillor Tripp?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to the CFO. Just a question would be, I'm wondering how this would impact the reserves in light of all of the other projects that we have on the books for the next year. When I was looking at the totals there, it looked to me like it was pretty close to a full usage of the reserves. So just wondering about that.
To our CFO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the impact of this would be to reduce the reserves by the additional $150,000. But one thing you might want to bear in mind is that we do have an additional $150,000 with respect to the yes, sorry. I always forget the name of that. But yeah, the voltage conversion project. So because now bringing it forward from 2018 to 2019 back to this year, we will have that additional revenues.
Your Worship.
Councillor Dawson?
Yeah, speaking in favor of the motion, this is the road to our hospital. And I do realize that there were some unforeseen leaks and issues on that street. But I would like to see the project completed and completed properly, and so that we're not having to go back and dig up and do repairs. So if there are issues in the underground infrastructure, let's deal with them. Let's get it done so that when the mayor has to drive down that hospital road again, God forbid, he doesn't shake, rattle, and roll on his way. So.
Doing good. All right. So unless we have any other discussion, all those.
Sorry to prolong it just a little bit longer. I actually didn't receive this late item. I looked for it, couldn't find it. So if you could just help me understand, why is it that we only got one bid? What are we doing wrong?
It's only compliant.
Yeah, it was the only compliant one, Councillor Butler. It's, there were other bids, but they did not comply due to errors on their application, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
And our CEO can elaborate even more if you wish more elaboration.
Thank you, Worship.
It's just unfortunate, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. Just to weigh in too is that there are dozens of these projects all over the province due to the infrastructure funding that the province got, and so everybody's busy, and so we're fortunate that we got what we did here because everybody's got stuff on their plate. So it's just one of those things. It's a market demand right now.
Is that different because of the time of the year?
Your Worship, it's because of the infrastructure funding that the province put through. So of course everybody's kind of clamoring to get the projects in time. I would imagine and anticipate that there's going to be a lot of municipalities asking for extensions on these projects because of the shortage of people that are able to do the construction on them.
Thanks for the explanation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. We now move on to the questions from the public and the media. And again, same routine. Please have your questions in compliance with the agenda items today. To the lady in the front.
I think that's going to see that one coming. Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Kate Salish for the Grand Forks Gazette. My first question is regarding the Herbivore Cannabis hearing, and it's just a procedural question. Under what circumstances is the hearing called, and how does that determination get made?
Pardon me?
Under what circumstances? It's just a
Can you
procedural.
use your mic, please, so that the other councillors can hear you, please? Thank you. Turn it off the slide, please. That one.
Thank you. So my first question was just procedural. I'm just curious as to what circumstances and how does a hearing get called, and what circumstances does that happen? Ever happen?
We'll move to our CAO, because this actually is the first time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, this is something that's that we haven't done standardly, but it is a part of the Section 60, subsection 5 of the Community Charter that advises that the procedure to be hearing somebody that has an issue with a business license. This is the proper procedure that needs to be followed.
Again, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, again. As this dispensary issue has been evolving over the past 8-9 months now, the question came up at one point, and then I wasn't quite sure if we had arrived at a conclusion on that. When my previous question had been, did staff know why the business license denial letter was CC'd to the RCMP? And when I asked that question earlier this summer, I didn't have an answer yet, and I was wondering if we had arrived at a conclusion on that.
To the best of my knowledge, I don't believe it was CC'd to the RCMP.
It was.
It was?
It was.
Well,
Through you to staff, perhaps?
staff answers to our CEO.
Looking at the letter, new to the position at the time, I believe that it was a courtesy CC because it was just different parties at the time that was involved, and I think it was just a matter of courtesy that they were aware that the city had issued that letter.
Just to elaborate on that, I believe there was a perception going out there that this was done intentionally. We were not, again, I will repeat this part, we were not there to instruct the RCMP what they had to do. They know what their role is, so this letter did not have any intent to instruct them that they should go to this place to Herbivore to follow through on, if you want to call it paying them a visit. Some people call it a raid. I don't think it was a raid because they did not go in there guns blaring. It was just a courtesy, as our CAO said. But there was no, as a conception out there is that we did it intentionally so as to instruct the RCMP. We don't tell the RCMP what to do, and we respect them not to tell us what to do. So.
Further to that, and if I may, is it a courtesy typically given to other businesses when business license letters are denied, or is it specific to the nature of this particular business?
To give other businesses?
To CC business license denial letters to the RCMP, or was it specific to the nature of this business?
I don't think there's been any denials, applications denied, as far as to the best of our knowledge. I mean, I could have staff clarify that, but I don't believe there was ever any business.
I was the license inspector for many years, and I never denied a license. And I don't believe, with my association with, since my retirement, I heard of any business license being denied. So this is a one-off.
Yeah, it seems to be a first, just like the hearing was a first. To our manager, development engineer.
We do occasionally get business licenses for people asking to operate businesses that they're not zoned for, and so in that situation, there have been some where we've had to either work with them or we've had to instruct them to rezone or something like that. So there are very, very few situations where that happens. But we only had, I think, one this year where it's improperly zoned. So it's not very, very solidly rejected business licenses, but it does happen.
But that's under zoning, et cetera, but that does not come under the realms of the law of the land. So I mean, we do have to work in cooperation with our authority that polices us. Yeah, go ahead.
Again, thank you, Your Worship, to whoever can answer the question. So then, with the city having denied Herbivore Cannabis its license on these grounds, is the city looking at, or is there any precedent for revoking the business license of the other dispensary in town at this point?
Not at the moment. There's no decision like that because the business license has been issued. Just because there is a business license issued to a certain particular business, that does not set a precedent that we are obligated to give a similar business license to another organization. That's not the way it works. And should it be revoked? That's a question that will be decided should it come up for renewal. But at this particular point in time, there's no element of, as far as council's concerned. Go ahead.
Then by follow-up, if I may, the city has cited an article that I've put my name on quite heavily throughout this process. And the comment was made, I believe, by Councillor Hammett then, that the dispensary owner chose to go to the press and make these comments publicly. So then I guess I have questions about implications possibly for free speech, for freedom of the press in that case. Do you feel that penalizing a business owner for comments made in the paper is unfair?
I don't think the business owner was penalized for making comments to the paper. It was the nature of the comments that drew the attention of the RCMP and the city. The nature of the comments that were made, because they basically contravened the law of the land. It's nothing to do with going to the newspaper. It has nothing to do with that at all, going to the press. It's the type of comments that were made to the press in regards to this situation.
If I may then, it has been argued that I give a platform to people to say things. So if she had made the same comments privately, would the city have had the same reaction?
That's speculative. I can't give you an answer on that. It'd be very speculative to try to surmise what the city would have done depending on the conditions and the circumstances of how these comments would have been made public. And it's the issue that it was made public. So the fastest, easiest way to make something public is through the media, obviously. And that's what she did. If she would have made them privately, it depends what you refer to privately. If she talks about it at the coffee shop, that's dependent on what you consider public. So again, it's a speculative question, which would ask us to surmise on what the city would have done, and that's speculative. I can't comment on that.
Okay. And then the councillor who made the comments that I have another question about isn't currently on the phone, Councillor Ross. But a comment, if I may, given that I was discussed during this meeting, I would just like to put it out there that I put my name on the front page every single week with the full knowledge that what I'm saying is correct and that council and city staff, as they have done before, can correct me when I'm wrong and that we issue corrections when I'm wrong. And I would question that anyone has become a victim of the press. And I'm not here to defend myself, but I just would like to address that given that comments were made about me in my presence. Thank you.
I agree with that.
Oh, no. That's just, yeah.
Before,
Yeah.
Les Johnson, GFT.
Can we just have
Go ahead.
a response? There's a response.
I just want to comment that when we have an application for a restaurant or for facilities that do any type of body work or anything like that, I do send notifications to IHA to let them know. We do ensure that they get their license prior to. So we do refer things to other agencies when there are other agencies potentially involved in many of our processes. So it's not unusual for us to refer to other agencies, other government agencies, and other utility companies or anything like that when we do get applications, and we do send those out in confidence prior to things becoming, if it's for a development or something like that, we send those out prior to it becoming public knowledge because it is sent out in confidence and that information stays with those agencies. But we do have processes in place for sharing information with other governments and such when we do have applications.
And just to comment on your statement, becoming victim of the press, if I may comment on that statement, and I say quite literally, nobody becomes the victims of the press, especially if the press is just documenting the facts that are presented to them. So it's up to the individual's own onus of what they state to the press, and unless the press makes a mistake, which you have stated, if you do, it would be cleared up. So no one becomes a victim of the press if they put something forward that should not have been put forward.
Exactly, and I mean, just to informally comment on that, you know, city staff and councillors even have come to me, you know, when I make a mistake, we issue a correction promptly, and I would draw attention to the fact that it was a direct quote. So in my arena, it's no different than hearing someone say something on the radio.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Councillor Thompson, and then we have the gentleman in the front. And then
I just
the
want
lady.
to assure you, I don't consider you fake news.
Thank you.
She's not.
Take it quite serious.
Before I get into the questions that I have, I would just
For
point out
the
that
record,
Les Johnson, GFTV, taxpayer. Before I get into my questions, I would just point out that in the conversation around the last time that Herbivore came before council, it was mentioned by more than one person, I can't say for sure whether it was a councillor or not, that basically what appeared in the paper, that what she wrote as an interview with the owner of Herbivore was alluded to as advertising by Herbivore or a promotional piece by Herbivore. And I'm pretty sure that is not the case. That was an actual reportage piece by my colleague there. Now, okay, the manager of operations mentioned that on occasion, information will be shared in confidence with other agencies depending on what the application is by what company for what facility, what license, etc. I'm curious if she can tell me whether it's in confidence, and she can't tell me how often is it that the RCMP is getting shared information on a business application for businesses in the city. Is that something you could tell me?
We've not had an application since I was a licensed inspector for an activity that was illegal, so I don't. Christine and Councillor Thompson, sorry. So I'm not sure. Never had a situation like this.
So the data didn't do that.
So supposedly, unless, well, he's not gone, the Premier of Saskatchewan will put a delay on the legalization efforts, but unless some politician in the country is able to actually manage to change the federal government's timetable, this time next year, pot will be legal, it will be decriminalized. I heard a number of arguments against.
But that's an assumption, Mr. Johnson.
Well, yeah, but that is what they.
The federal government could change their mind. It could only happen next September. It could happen in 2 years from now.
Yeah, they
There's no
projected
guarantee.
July 20th.
It was their campaign platform by Mr. Trudeau.
When he hasn't changed his mind. Anyways, so if that timetable actually follows through, then by this time next year, it will be a legal product and you won't be able to hide behind the legalities of the federal law. I heard a number of...
Excuse me, can I interrupt you, sir?
Sure.
That is a very bad terminology. We're not hiding behind any legal terminology. We are obliged as a corporation to respect the law. We don't have a choice in that matter. So to hide behind it, I think is a very, very derogatory statement.
My apologies for the illusion. In the conversation about, from various statements by various councillors as to what they had against this application for this business in this location at this time, I heard a number of things. Now, the legality will be no longer an issue a year from now. I heard Councillor Tripp, for instance, say that reference things about Health Canada and the effects, the deleterious effects on children. Well, does she through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Tripp, do you think that Herbivore would be selling cannabis to children? Is that what you're trying to say with that comment?
I stated what I stated, and I believe what I stated. And if your question is getting to what happens in a year from now, all of that will be dependent on what Health Canada has done and what they have put in place. I mentioned that they said that they need stiff regulations, and I think there's a lot of things that they want to study. There's intoxicated driving, driving while you're high. 16-year-olds get behind the wheel, and so there's just a lot of issues, Les. And I just don't believe that those issues that they admit themselves have been sufficiently studied. And once they do, I trust that they'll have something in place that will benefit all of our communities and all of the different segments of people in the community, including young people.
If I may just weigh in on that topic we're speaking of now, I think I've mentioned this once before. I don't make any judgment call on the product because I'm not an authority on it. I have no experience. I do not know what the product does. It may be a wonderful product. It may help. It may be way better than these high-priced multinational corporation pharmaceutical companies. And I'm sure it probably does wonders. Unfortunately, when we speak about the product, and I have to keep going back to the paper that says we're governed by the law of the land. It's unfortunate. But to speculate whether the product is good or not, that's not not in my realm. If any other councillors feel they have an authoritative position and they have the experience to know what the product does or doesn't, I will not even attempt to say that it's not good.
I understand that, Mr. Mayor, and I didn't get an answer to my question, Councillor Tripp. You went and quoted a bunch of other things that are potentially harmful effects of marijuana, but you didn't actually answer my question as to whether you thought Herbivore would be selling to children, because it's not really an issue as to whether she would be selling a product specifically to adults, I'm pretty sure, and people who would buy a membership, and I'm fairly certain that she wouldn't be selling to children. So you are bringing that up. It's curious. And the other curious aspect of that to me is that the very first time you ever appeared before this body, when it was in its other location temporarily, you were actually, and you still have this issue too, you were talking about hypersensitivity disorder, and I know that you were going to be bringing this microcell thing, which is mentioned in your report, to the UBCM. Yet that disorder, if you go, and I checked tonight on Health Canada's website, and they do not see that as a disease or a real disorder. There's no, in their words, no evidence to say that that is a real disorder. So the fact that you would actually bring them into this and quote something that really has no bearing on whether or not Herbivore should operate or not, I found to be curious. Now, I gave you a chance to answer, you didn't. Back to other comments by councillors. Councillor Hammett mentioned a location downtown with lots of drug abusers. I would point out that the problems that that community has are with addictive, very bad drugs, not pot. I understand from your comments, Councillor Tripp, that you worked in the penal system, and it sounds like what you were saying, that a lot of those people saw pot or booze as the gateway to, that's true, I guess that's quite possible, but considering that probably over 50% of the people in this country, by some statistics, have actually tried pot, and it's not 50% of the people in this country who are in prison or have been in prison, I would point out that it's quite possible that those people's bad choices led them there, and pot or marijuana were the gateway that they chose. I have sat in a court here, not because I was in court, but because there was somebody who killed my wife who was in court, and the judge in that court, I heard him say specifically, when he had people come in front of him on alcohol-related domestic abuse and other kinds of bad behavior charges specifically point out that in all his years on the bench, he was about to retire, that he had never seen a case in front of him where their life had been destroyed because they were smoking pot, unless it was because they got arrested for it. But he had many, many people who came before him whose lives were in ruins because of alcohol. Now, getting to the next point by one of the other councillors, Councillor Hamlet, about the location. This town has a rum shop right across the street from the high school. Rum, I mean, that's alcohol's business. Alcohol is known to be far worse for your health, far more of a gateway to ruined life, yet it's right across the street from a high school here. And we won't put a pot dispensary downtown. I'm just trying to point out that there's, when I talk to the people who know me and know this town or have heard the reputation of this town, they're going to wonder why is there's this confusion there? This is the place Cannabis highlighted in its documentary. Tons of people, lots of people in this town smoke pot. And unfortunately, they have to resort to what would right now be the criminal element and put themselves in jeopardy of having a criminal record should they be caught with it or caught selling it. And you are denying them a legitimatized way of dealing with something which will be legitimate a year from now. Don't you find that kind of two-faced? I know that's maybe a pejorative term, but you have a rum shop across the street from a high school, but you won't put a pot shop downtown. Yes, Councilor.
Oh, I'm not sure where I am on your list of comments that I made, because I tend to just say stuff. Totally agree with the concept of alcohol. Like it's ruined more lives than anything else on this planet. But technically it's legal. So technically there could be a rum or whiskey shop across from a high school. I think that we should be the same as Washington State. That we should have that ability for anybody that wants medical marijuana or any of its derivatives to be able to get it locally. And that's why we put forward some motions in the past when they said, oh no, medical marijuana was just smokable. And I'm like, health and smoking? Is that? No, but they were banning the derivatives and the oil, so that's why we supported adding those to the medical marijuana list and recreational too. Like there's all kinds of things that are going to flow from it. Yes, there's impaired driving, and anybody that says that if they smoke pot and then drive that they're not impaired is not correct. But it's the same under the legal system as alcohol. Right? So nobody should be driving impaired for any reason, whether it's texting or alcohol or pot or anything like that. My vote on the business license was just that. Like she had the opportunity to operate. She could operate under another license. She then went public and stated that what she was doing was illegal. And but she was going to get a jump on it because it probably is going to be illegal, or sorry, be legal by next July, right? So it's just too early. So I think that we're arguing the benefits of medicinal and recreational marijuana rather than what we dealt with tonight was a business license, which wouldn't make any difference if she didn't have one and she operated, which she did, right? So now she wants one, and my understanding was some people believe if you have a business license, the RCMP won't come and raid you. That's not true, right? They will, because technically it's illegal. Should it be? No. what it is, so there's my comment. So if you didn't have one, you know, ready.
I'm going to jump in too, because the fact that it is illegal at this point in time is what precludes me from supporting and condoning the business license. Do I think that it should be available for medicinal purposes and recreational purposes? Absolutely. I don't participate myself, but for somebody who wants to, who's adult, or who needs it for medicine, by all means, fly at it. But until such time as the federal government makes it legal, I cannot be condoning the operation of a business that is illegal.
So one final question. Given that this town has now benefited 2 years in a row from a massive music concert to Cannabis, it's all about promoting the whole idea of pot for medical uses at least. And next year, marijuana will probably be legal for all uses. And as far as I remember, one time I actually had a business license here for a business. I didn't have to come in front of council. So next year, if she actually applies for a business license when it's legal, is it going to have to come in front of council, or is she just going to have to apply for a business license? It's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's what
It came before council because she appealed.
I understand.
That's the only reason it came to this table.
Cannabis, like I had concerns when they first appeared, that it was going to be like a 420 celebrate, like what they're doing on what they do on the coast, and they thrash the place and they litter it, they destroy property, and it costs hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when I first heard of it, I thought, oh, okay, that can't be good. And then learned a bit more, and I was just at the last one, and there was vendors that had displays for information. Nobody was selling anything. Nobody was, like, I smelled in 2 parts of that park a faint aroma of pot when I passed by a smoking section. But it wasn't the whole smoking section. It had to be probably one individual, because you just got a tiny whiff. And the vendors are all there, and I think there was somebody there that had to concentrate the oils and all that, but nobody was dispensing, nobody was doing anything that I could see when I was wandering around anyways. So yeah, it's got Cannabis in the name, and that's what I said to somebody, is our festival actually has kind of a drug name and the other ones don't, and yet we have no problems. We don't have the massive overdoses and deaths and everything else, everything that goes along for Summerfest or, you know, ski weekend or any other title. So ours actually has drugs in it, and we didn't have a problem with any of that I saw.
No, and the other thing too is the first year, like
That was awesome.
Chuck was born and grew up here, and I know his family. The only complaint I had about it was that the volume wasn't turned up, and I couldn't hear it as clearly as I would have liked it on my patio. But the other thing too is that the first year they had, the hospital had no idea what to expect. And so they had prepared with extra staff and other, extra doctors on call, on notice. Of all of the emergencies that came into them over that weekend, not one came from Cannabis. So, they run a really well-organized event, and I think they do our city proud.
Much better than if it was Alcafest.
See, the paradox on this, Mr. Johnson, is what I stated earlier regarding the legalities and what Health Canada and the government puts out. We're talking about Cannabis. They're actually publicly advertising cannabis, correct? The last statement it marks, it remains illegal for a company or an individual to advertise cannabis to the general public. So where's the enforcement there? Councillor Tripp?
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, just one thing. I know a number of people have said to me, it's such a great festival. Can't they, couldn't they just change their name? Because I think the same organizers run one out of Merritt or something like that, and it's called Riverfest.
Well,
Is that not the
they're
case?
looking at a country festival.
Okay. Well, anyway, they were saying, couldn't we just change the name to something else? Like, I don't know.
I think the government has to step up to the plate, like every other thing in the higher levels of government, and they're not coming up to the plate.
The other thing I just wanted to say quickly, sorry, Mayor Conrad, is that I too have had friends, dear, good friends, who have used the products because they were dying of cancer, and they used the products for medicinal purposes to get them through, and they ended up passing away, and the cannabis products apparently helped them to really relieve the pain and stuff. So I certainly am not. I'm not in favor of the regulated product, and that's my concern. My concern is that there needs to be a lot more thought and a lot more regulations put in place before this hits our market. That's my concern.
Thank you. Just one more on this. Further to Leslie's comment, then a question through you, Your Worship, to staff. So, in the event of legalization, would Herbivore Cannabis have to reapply? Like, now that this hearing has taken place, do they have to file a new business license? Do they reopen this one? It's just, what would happen in that case?
Would file a new one, obviously. I mean, why would she reapply for the same one? She could do either avenue, I believe. There'd be no restrictions once it's legal.
Well, this has been denied. Her license was denied.
Yes, her license has been denied, so.
The application has been denied, not her license, the application.
Yeah,
Let's
she
make
didn't
it,
get one.
let's get the clear clarification of the wording and the language here. Not the license, the application has been denied.
So would the application be reopened in the event of legalization?
She'd have to.
I would, if I was doing an application, why would I want to reopen it? I'd just reapply new.
Okay, so there are no restrictions in terms of, in terms of staff on names or address?
Speculation, that's speculation in the first place. We don't know if it's going to be legalized for the first, and we don't keep a record. That would be like carrying a vendetta. We don't do that. That would never be done by the city. If she reapplies, a new application, it would be deemed as a new application unless I'm totally wrong. I mean, there would be no record because you applied and got denied. We don't, that's not a character reference type scenario put on any application unless I'm totally incorrect to our CAO.
Your Worship, because the application was denied and it's pretty much just gone. And so should we have the legalization of marijuana, and she would have to take and reapply because we don't even know like if she would be in the same location and that, so there would still be some different factors that would have to come into place, so she would have to run the application.
Perfect, thank you.
The slate will be drawn clean, in other words.
And one question, not on dispensaries. I understand that Mr. Alcock isn't here, but if another manager could answer. It says in his report, city park washrooms and playground areas a focus of surveillance. And I am wondering what that is referring to. Have there been specific issues or incidents?
I'll let our CAO comment on that one. I don't know if that's confidential or not.
Well, Your Worship, without Mr. Alcock being here, I know that there's certain areas in town where they kind of take and watch out for any activities. So I think that the lift station washrooms were one of the places of interest, and so it's pretty much customary that they would go in there as well. Of course, as a spray park would be a safety concern as far as children and anybody using the spray park involved. So it's something that they would kind of do on a continued basis just to make sure that everything's safe.
So they're not responding to any one specific incident?
No.
Sorry, yeah, you've been waiting for a long time.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Janet Thorpe, and I'm with the Sunshine Valley Women's Institute. And Mr. Mayor, I'm wondering if you can tell us when will the 72nd Avenue sidewalk be built?
It's in motion. That's all I can say. I can't give you any timelines, exact dates. Are you suggesting when it will start or when it will be complete?
Either. I understood tonight, it was a little confusing, but I think I understood that you have agreed now that the money is in place? You've got $150,000 in the budget and you've upped it to, and so does that mean you can start right away?
I don't know, but that would have to be with
Let our manager of development engineering speak to that.
Project this size and with that much money, we have to go out for RFP. So we have to go with proposals, so we have to draw upon a project proposal, and then we put it out for bidding. And then we get the bids back, and then we go from there. But there is a process. Yeah, we have a purchasing policy in place that we have to follow, and anything over $10,000.
Yeah, and it's also it's always subject to price increases in the interim when all this is taking place. So if we're over budget again, it'll have to go back to council to revise the budget.
So it seems likely that it won't be started this fall.
We're going to try. We're hoping it can coordinate with.
And possibly just this fall. That would be wonderful.
Unfortunately, they have to truck asphalt in from either Penticton or Crescent Valley, and so timing these projects is critical for these companies to be able to make money. If we're lucky, we can time it with a highways project, and they'll fire up a plant here in Grand Forks, but in general, that's the two places they haul from, so it's tricky, and like Mr. Reed said, it can be very tricky getting asphalt done, but we're going to do our best and hope that the weather sticks with us.
And they are doing projects, they're going to be doing a big highways project out of Rock Creek. So,
It's happening right now.
Yeah, so that's, you know, a good sign there that.
Hi, Jen. One little thing that, it's just a segue off of her comment about Mr. Alcott's mention of the washroom situation. In the 2 weeks before Canada 150, the Canada Day celebrations, there was pictures of a homeless person who'd set up their own little shelter right outside the washroom on the stage in City Park. And I went through there and I took a look. And yes, there was, and they were gone by the time Canada Day was and it happened. But one of the things I did there was I went into the washrooms and I was specifically looking for something I didn't find. At the library, in the last year, we have put in sharps disposal units, which are a place where a person who has an injection needle that they want to get rid of can just drop it in there and nobody can actually fetch it back out. And we did that, or that was done at the library because needles were found in places they shouldn't be. Now, part of the scuttlebutt going around, well, I don't know if it's true or not, has been about needles being found in the playground or in the grass, in City Park, etc. And so I went to see whether the city had actually put in any sharps disposal units in the public washroom in City Park. Because if needles are being found in City Park, there should be something there. And the city hasn't. And as far as I know, there is none. And I would just suggest that I don't even know if it would cost the city any money, but I suspect that there would be funding available to do this. That if you were to put something in there, and every needle that you see being put in that sharps disposal unit would be a needle that wasn't sitting in the grass waiting for some kid or somebody else to stumble across and poke himself with. And it would be a community service. It would be something visible. And I know that it wouldn't be nice for tourists to come here and see, oh my God, they have an injection drug problem, but there's injection drug problems everywhere. And like I said, every needle that goes into one of those containers is one that doesn't go out there to the public. That's just my suggestion.
How many would go in that disposal unit, though, you really feel? Because with information that I have resourced at the coast, they have some of these. Most of them just throw them on the floor beside the unit. They don't even use the disposal unit.
I understand that, but even if they were on the floor beside the unit, they wouldn't be out in the grass. If you actually visit the library and look in the washroom, there's probably a half a dozen to 10 or so needles in there. I'm not sure how often it is actually changed. Every needle that's in there is one that's on the grass.
I think unfortunately it comes down to the statement, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Mr. Reed.
I'd just like to comment on that through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the comment on that. We, I don't know the exact numbers, but we probably have 8 to 12 sharps containers in different areas for collection to try to keep them out of places where we don't want to see needles, but maybe we need to do a better job of making the public or the people aware of where they are. So we'll see if we can do something better on that front.
Is the one still on the wall out there, out that, by the park?
Yeah, I think we have about 4 in the downtown area, at least 4.
What's been the turnover rate on the ones we have?
They're well used. Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but.
Good.
Motion
Okay.
to adjourn.
Unless there's any other questions, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?